Good evening for a few of you. Welcome to the community briefing. Today is January 13, 2022, our second broadcast of this year, and we are glad you're here. Our guest today is Donna Gambrell, and she's going to be talking to us about the importance of CDFIs. And if you don't know what that is, you're about to find out. Speaking of finance, I'm in the financial services business. My company's name is Lifesaver Financial Services, where I help my clients keep more of the money that they make. Few of you. And financial services, where I help my clients keep. Oh, got a little bit.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. It was so nice I had to say it twice. Because I believe that when you feel better about your money, you feel better about your life. So you'd like to feel better about your money, reach out to me and I'll get you and your money reacquainted. And now, without further delay, it's my pleasure to introduce the queen of the community briefing, Ms. Crystal Mitchell.
Good morning, everyone. I am so happy to see you. I am excited to meet our guest today. She's got some great information, I am sure, to share with us. I am Crystal Mitchell. I am the co-director of Recycling Black Dollars, and I am the creator and founder of the community briefing. This platform was created so that we could make sure that we get firsthand, up-to-date information that can help us as the Black community, Black and Brown community, but specifically the Black community, get firsthand information so that we can make choices and decisions that impact our lives, that impact our community in a much timely manner. In addition to co-directing Recycle Black Dollars, I am also a business coach. I have my own business. I'm a consultant, and I help small businesses with tools, mentorship, and resources and training to make sure that they're operating businesses that are bank ready, contract ready, and business ready. I host a couple other podcasts. One's called The Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert. I host that every Friday afternoon at 3:00. Looking for guests for this winter season. So if you guys are interested, let me know. And I also do a program and podcast on Monday called Conversations on the Patio. And we talk about retirement, something that seems so far off for us entrepreneurs, but for some of us, we need to be really thinking about it. So we have some great lively conversations on what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and don't be that guy. So if you guys want links, you can go to my Facebook page, RBD's Facebook page, and the Business Zone. So with that, I am going to turn it back over to Greg. Thank you all for being here. Colette, Michelle, these are our regulars, Michael Banner, Emma Maxey, and there's a host of other people that are coming in, B, Chris, Michael Browning as well. So thank you guys, glad to have you, and back at you, Greg.
All right, I'll take that mute button off. So as you guys know, sometimes I go from current and then back. Today I'm going to start at the back and go forward. So it's my pleasure to introduce Donna Gambrell. Donna started off at Towson University, I think that's in Maryland. And
Towson,
then
Towson, Gregory. Towson,
okay. You know, I'm a New Yorker, so we got to say Towson.
I know that.
And then she went to, speaking of New York, she went to New York University, NYU, and got her master's degree in public administration. For a while there, she was with the FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, and you all know that it helps keep your money safe, among other things, at the banks. She's worked with the Department of Treasury. She was Director of Community Development, Financial Institutions, and the Financial Institutions Fund. She has her own company, Donna Gambrell Enterprises, since 2014. She's worked with the Federal Reserve of Atlanta, Southern Bancorp, and now she's with the Appalachian Community Capital as the Chief Executive Officer. So she knows a lot about money, and she's going to share that with us about how important money is and how it works, and why CDFIs are an important part of the financial picture. Without further delay, please welcome Donna Gambrell to the stage.
Gregory, thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction and thank you for the welcome. I'm so happy to be part of this session on community briefing. Actually, this is my first presentation of 2022. So happy New Year to everybody and wishing a good, productive, and brighter 2022 than we've certainly seen with COVID in the last couple of years. It's amazing to me to think that we are going into our third year dealing with a pandemic. But in spite of that, we, and particularly in our community, remain vigilant, we remain resilient, we are continuing to push forward through some difficult challenges because we know what those challenges are like, and we've been there before. So Gregory, you tell me how you want to, you want me to start off. I can give a little history of CDFIs, if that helps.
Well, yeah, and just a little small housekeeping is that you all know that, a lot of you have Zoom etiquette, so please keep yourselves on mute. If you have questions, please put them in the chat room, and we'll get to your questions. Donna, you can do your presentation. Do you have the screen to share, or is it going to be spoken? Okay. So, and I would say use about 20 minutes or so, and then we'll save some time for questions. How's that sound?
I just want to interject for just 1 second. Welcome, Robin Phillips, back. We are so happy to have you.
Yeah.
Robin is one of our other co-hosts of the community briefing, and she'll check in with us in a few minutes. But thank you, and we are thank you, Donna. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, Gregory said that I know a lot about money. That was a lesson that was hard fought for me. I grew up in a household that knew very little about money, frankly, very little about credit. My father never had a checking account or a savings account. He died very young at age 60. We grew up not knowing what a budget even looked like because we literally were living from day to day, which is what a lot of people do, frankly, even today. And I tell people all the time that I ended up in the area that I'm in probably because of what was lacking as I was growing up, and that was just the ability to understand financing, the ability to budget, the ability to save, all of that. It just seemed like that those, when I looked at other people, they were doing it, and I was trying to figure out why I couldn't, why we weren't. So that's in many ways how I ended up at the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. I've been working in the consumer protection area for a long time. I'm not even going to tell you how long it has been. Just let's say it's more than 1 decade. But I think I was introduced to this whole idea of wealth building just based on my own background. And so I ended up working at the Community Development Financial Institutions Fund, which sits within the Treasury Department. I came on board in 2007, a couple of months before the first financial meltdown, if you all recall, of course, in 2008, what happened. But that experience really opened my eyes in many ways, even beyond the experiences that I had at the FDIC and other positions, just where the gap was in terms of wealth in this country. Certainly saw the disparity, not only around racial lines, but also income as well, geographic. And so I tell people all the time that it was probably one of the best jobs I've ever had, aside from the one that I'm currently in. But I think it has really helped me become even more committed to working in supporting underserved communities. So what are CDFIs? And that's, the typical question that always comes up. What do you all do? So we're community development financial institutions. In many ways, our roots are in the civil rights movement. In this country, when there was perhaps more covert legal discrimination, what you found in so many of our communities is that there was a lack of financial institutions, a lack of banks, a lack of credit unions. And in many ways, that's how the CDFI movement got started. It was minority-owned banks that said, we need to be in our community, we need to provide affordable access to credit to those who are living in our community, because no one else was doing that. There were specific barriers and challenges to folks even getting loans, credit loans, car loans, home mortgages. And so in many ways, that became the root or the foundation of the CDFI movement itself. Those minority banks evolved in many ways into credit unions that formed later in the 40s and the 50s. Those also, what you saw was an introduction of community development corporations in the 60s and loan funds in the 70s and 80s until in the mid 1990s, there was the formation of the CDFI fund that was in many ways a dream of Bill Clinton's. He had said during the campaign trail that there were a lack of minority depository institutions in low-income communities. He kind of envisioned this ecosystem where there would be organizations that would be serving those communities. It started out with just a handful of CDFIs, about 200. That number now totals close to 1,300 as of end of December. There were 1,298 CDFIs all across the country. There is at least one CDFI in every state of the Union, including Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. And basically what these CDFIs do, what their mission is to provide support and assistance to underserved markets that have been historically marginalized, that have been traditionally left out of the financial mainstream. And they provide that support primarily through the kind of capital, credit, and financial services that are most needed for that community. And I think it's important to mention here that these don't just evolve overnight. It comes from the community itself. The community actually identifies the priorities and they identify what the challenges are. And so many CDFIs are created and grow organically from the community itself because they've said this is what we need. And so across the country, again, you've got CDFIs that are involved in a number of different sectors: housing, small businesses, community facilities, education, health. It really, again, depends on where the community has identified where their priorities are. So I said that there are 1,300 CDFIs. Those CDFIs probably manage a little over $200 billion in assets. And that sounds like a lot until you look at the number of traditional banks in this country, 5,000, and they are managing something like 27 trillion or 72 trillion, $72 trillion in assets. So there's a big gap still. We are still, these little droplets in a pond, and yet very powerful in what we do. And I think when you see and when you read about and when you learn about just the impact that CDFIs are having, and particularly minority-led, and even more specifically, Black-led CDFIs, with very few resources, what they're able to do and the impact that they're having. I think, most people are just amazed when you look at that. So throughout the industry, the CDFIs are serving about 60% of the communities they serve are communities of color. 84% are low income, 28% are in rural populations, 50% are women, they're serving women customers. And so you see a diversity in the type of clients and the type of customers that CDFIs serve. Now, fast forward, as we talk about that evolution, we are now in not only a financial crisis, but we're in a health crisis as well with the onset of COVID. And what we saw is that in spite of great traction, great progress that had been made, it's almost like taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back when it comes to Black communities in particular. We saw the impact of COVID on small businesses, Black small businesses throughout this country that were hard hit by the pandemic and frankly still are struggling to operate their businesses, to stay in business. And now they're having the new challenges, of course, even as people are starting to recover, is dealing with the impact. There's, a surge in COVID cases. There is now with these businesses a concern about staffing, staffing issues, higher costs of inventory, keeping and retaining their customers. And you are dealing, again, with small businesses that may not have the same technology, the same tools that other businesses may have. And so they may not have been able to easily pivot and go online and sell their products there. They're still just trying to figure out how to manage their cash flow. And so I think, we've got a lot of work still to do. And I think that CDFIs play a central role in making that happen. In California, there are about 104 CDFIs. But even within this state, and you see the largest number of CDFIs in California and in New York on either coast, even within California, you still only have about 6 or 7 Black-led CDFIs. And trying to find that information probably has been the biggest challenge of who's actually running these organizations. So we have an organization that was formed in 2018. I have the honor of being the board chair of this entity called the African American Alliance of CDFI CEOs. And I know a couple of the members are on the call today as well, and good to see them. This group was formed in 2018, primarily because we not only wanted to share our knowledge and information with one another, but you had within this group, and we started with about 20 people in a room, thrilled that we were in a room and everybody looked like us and had similar experiences running CDFIs. And so we came together to not only share our knowledge and expertise, but we also understood that even within the CDFI industry, there are disparities in the types of investments that CDFIs are receiving, that there certainly were differences between minority-led CDFIs and white-led CDFIs in terms of the investments that were being made, the growth that was occurring. And so we really wanted to try to get at the heart of the matter and open up the door and open up the conversation, frankly, to investors to get additional investments into those Black-led CDFIs so that we could, number one, build the ecosystem of Black-led CDFIs, help those organizations build their capacity, become stronger and bigger and more diverse in terms of the products and services that they offered. We wanted to be a source of knowledge and for each other and support for each other. And we wanted to be advocates. We know that in this world, things don't happen in isolation, that you have to have policies and procedures and practices that are in place to move, to have, make things go. And so we have been strong advocates talking with the government and private sector entities about the need to invest in these CDFIs, because the communities cannot thrive unless you have as the conduit those CDFIs that also have the resources, the technology, and other types of support to grow. We were a strong advocate for the recent infusion of capital into CDFIs. We worked in collaboration with a number of organizations, national, regional, and state. And so as part of the December legislation that that was passed by Congress in 2020, what you saw is the infusion of the largest amount of capital ever in the history of the CDFI industry, $12 billion, $9 billion of that to go to minority CDFI depository institutions, and $3 billion to go to nonprofit CDFIs, which the vast majority are nonprofit loan funds. And with the recent announcement by the Treasury Department of the $12 billion, what you now have is a game changer for many minority depository institutions that will be able to use that capital to grow their organizations, to provide additional loans to their customers. It really is serving in many ways as equity into those institutions in ways that they have never had. And I think on the other side with loan funds, again, that $3 billion, half of that has already been dispersed. And the other half will be directed primarily to minority-led CDFIs or those CDFIs that are serving minority communities. It could also be a game changer on the nonprofit CDFI side as well. Is more needed? Absolutely. Again, I don't know what $12 billion looks like. I've never held it in my hands. A lot of money, but that doesn't mean that is where it should stop, because we have seen, again, decades, generations of disinvestment, underinvestment in communities of color, in African-American communities of color, and therefore it is incumbent, I believe, for that commitment to continue, not only from the federal government, but from the private sector as well. With that, I think I'll just stop right there. I've given, I think, a good overview of CDFIs and what we do, but we will continue, I think, to have that commitment to serving underserved markets and really recognize the importance of serving those markets. And now it really is incumbent to really keep our foot on the gas pedal, if you will, and make sure that not only those commitments are made public, but we actually see the fruits of those commitments. Because what we don't want, of course, is to have a lot of pronouncements made about people being allies and supporters and not really seeing, the fruits of those commitments. And so we look forward, I think, to working with the industry and certainly working with both the banks and foundations and philanthropic communities as well, to look at ways in which we can continue to support our communities and to continue to receive investments in a way that will help grow wealth in the communities that we serve.
Thank you very much. Oh yeah, that's fantastic. No, it's very, very, very good. And I hope one day that you do get a chance to hold $1 billion in your hand. I have a quick question, just sort of a curiosity question, is going back to my geography. I know the Appalachians run from like Canada down almost to like almost Alabama or something. So what market area are you serving, and what is considered Appalachian?
That's a great question, Greg. I get that all the time. So, and folks don't realize just how widely that region it covers. So we start really at the bottom portion of New York. We follow the spine of the Appalachian Mountains all the way down to the top portion of Mississippi. So that includes all of West Virginia, as well as the portion of 12 other states. And people say, oh, well, gosh, is there any diversity in Appalachia? Does everybody kind of look the same? Well, there is probably not the same level of diversity that you would see in the Delta region, for example, or in some urban markets. But there certainly is diversity in Appalachia, especially when you consider the states that it covers: Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, the Carolinas. We have Black and brown small businesses there, and that is what we serve. That's what our niche is a small business market within the Appalachian region. And one of my particular interest in being CEO of this Appalachian Community Capital is to make sure that we are being very inclusive in our lending. So it's primarily a rural market of 423 counties. But again, there are different types of businesses all throughout these counties of different racial groups, different women who are owning their businesses and are heads of households, rural, very low income and persistent poverty counties. We want to make sure that we're serving the entire market, not just one segment of it.
Great, great. And once again, you're correcting my New York pronunciation, because I always learned that Appalachian you're pronouncing it Appalachian.
And I was taught to pronounce it that way. Because when I lived in New York, I used to always talk about Houston Street, and I was corrected when people said it's not
Houston.
Houston.
Yeah.
Austin.
Yeah. Where did you grow up?
I was born in DC,
Okay.
mostly raised
In the DC area. Okay. Where do you see kind of the future of CDFIs? I mean, they've been around a while. A lot of us didn't know about it. It really has come to the forefront, a year and a half ago with the PPP. And do you know Colette? Have you guys met before? Because Colette has given us a tutorial on the CDFIs. We've had a couple other guests. A lot of people realize and know that they exist. So how is that helping you guys in terms of just marketability and reach and funding as well?
No, great question. Another great question. So you're right. I think the Paycheck Protection Program that came out of SBA really elevated the visibility for CDFIs. even though they had been around for a few decades, people still didn't understand what they were or what they meant or what even the acronym stood for. And I think PPP really opened the door to helping people understand that, CDFIs are not competitors with banks. They are, in many ways can be complementary partners. But in the case of PPP, what they did was to step into the breach where banks either were not or could not do that. Even within our own organization, within the African American Alliance of CDFIs, we have 57 members. Probably a third of those members do small business lending, but an even smaller portion were eligible to do PPP lending. And that's a whole nother conversation for another day in terms of some of the challenges that we encountered first with the PPP program. But of those 12 members that did PPP lending or packaged loans to provide to other members so that they could process, we processed about $4 billion. And that was in the second and third round. So I think when you see the impact that CDFIs are making, there's even greater visibility. Where do we go from here? I think in many ways, the sky's the limit. I'd love to see more CDFIs. People say, well, maybe there shouldn't be any more. Maybe 1,300 really is the right number. But I think in communities where you continue to see some of those challenges and having people have access to affordable credit, you're seeing a leakage in terms of bank branches. Bank branches are leaving many communities. What's filling the gap, unfortunately, are payday lenders and other high-priced lending, predatory lending that's actually occurring. So I would love to see some more CDFIs grow in that space. And again, I think that there's a great opportunity. Now is the moment for people to really say, we can increase those numbers. I've talked to, just in the past couple of weeks, Gregory, at least 3 or 4 folks from New York, Baltimore, I forgot the other location, but they're saying, listen, we're Ohio, we're wanting to start a CDFI. How do we do that? We think we've got the resources and the wherewithal. We just need to know what the mechanics are to creating a CDFI, because we want to meet the needs of our community.
Our co-host here, Robin Billups, has a request to please share with us a few success stories that we as a community can do to support the coalition. And I've got some construction going on outside. So Crystal, I may need you to take over. I don't know if that's coming through. It sounds like it should be. But if I repeat, please share some of the success stories.
Did you ask me to share some of the success stories?
Yes.
Yes. So, oh gosh, my goodness gracious. How many days and weeks and months do you have with me? I'll name a few. I think, again, within, and if you're talking specifically about Alliance members, you've got some folks on the call who can talk even more eloquently about the work they've done. But certainly what I've seen is, one of the things that has been really important within the industry is looking, for example, at commercial real estate development and seeing that there is a lack of developers, minority developers, who are given the opportunity to kind of get through those doors for commercial real estate of the development, where there is real ability to, build housing or build facilities, but they simply have not had the opportunity to work either with other developers or to work on major development projects. And so there have been CDFIs that have now started funds that will help train and mentor minority developers, which is very much needed. The Enterprise Community Partners just recently announced their fund the other day. I think it's $350 million that they've raised to provide the kind of training and technical assistance for minority providers. Capital Impact Partners in Virginia has had something similar in place for at least a couple of years. So you're seeing, I think, especially in places where we haven't often had an opportunity to get traction, to have traction. In places like Gwinnett County in Georgia, a little CDFI called Albany Together, run by Thelma Johnson, has been working on food insecurity for the last few years in particular. That was also a place where you saw some of the highest rates in terms of COVID infections and hospitalizations. So you had high poverty, high unemployment rates, but you also had a health crisis going on in the fact that not only were people being infected in disproportionate numbers by the pandemic, but they were also in many ways for decades living in an area where there was high food insecurity as well. So she has been working for the last couple of years or so on what's called the Albany, Georgia Food Hub. I had to just read a couple of things because she's partnering in Southwest Georgia with Shirley Sherrod. Many of you know that name because she was an senior executive at USDA for a number of years, but they are focused on healthcare. They're talking to regional hospitals now about providing a clinic and nutritionist for underserved areas. And the project itself is located in a low-income tract that has been traditionally, historically, involved in food insecurity, not having healthy food as an alternative. The Housing Trust in Tennessee just recently received a $2.2 million investment from Amazon to help with mortgage down payment assistance for communities of color in the Tennessee footprint that is served by the Housing Trust. And again, we look at home ownership and we know that that is still one of the best ways to build wealth in addition to small businesses. And so our CDFIs have been very much involved in working with not only Amazon, but other corporations as well. I think that's where we really want to see even greater involvement because the corporate world, the Business Roundtable in particular, has came out in October of 2020 with a number of commitments that they pledged to make to communities of color, to organizations led by people of color. And so we're starting to see some of that happening. We want to see more.
Michael Banner has a question. How do you think the $10 billion SSBCI 2.0 program will help the CDFI industry?
Again, Michael, I think that could be a game changer. So I was at Treasury during SSBCI 1.0. It wasn't a program that was under my purview, but what I saw during that time is that the communities that were most successful in using SSBCI dollars were the ones where the state said, we want that money to go to CDFIs and we want them to be the ones that are deploying those funds because they know most of all where those underserved pockets in the community are. And so one of the things that we have really been urging all of CDFIs, and in particular CDFIs led by people of color, is to make sure that they are working hand in hand with their state governments because the money is coming through the states. And they need to know that CDFIs exist. They need to know the impact that CDFIs are having, and they need to know that CDFIs can be play a big role in this program because they're offering loan guarantees, loan loss reserves, other types of programs as well, participation lending, and that's just the first part. At some point in March, there's a second piece of SSBCI that's focused exclusively on technical assistance. And so we want to make sure that CDFIs are at the table.
Greg asked the question, could you explain what the SSBCI is?
State Small Business Credit Initiative. And this is only the second time that it has been launched from the government. The first time was again to help with the financial crisis, to assist with the financial crisis in 2008. We're now in another financial crisis. And so that's why SSBCI has been relaunched.
Hey, Crystal, if I might add, I'm curious of the people that are on this Zoom call, how many of you had heard of the Small Business Credit Initiative in 2010?
You guys can do a hands up or raise your hand if you know.
One person?
So Robin, seems like our bankers do.
So I think that one of the things that everybody needs to be mindful of. That was $168 million at the time that came into the state, and it was divided up between two effectively state programs, and you have no idea that it existed.
So how do
This time it is over $1 billion that is coming into the state. And one of the fundamental requirements of the program is that the state has to leverage those dollars 10 to 1. So for every dollar that comes from Treasury, state of California, working through whichever partners and however they want to characterize it, they have to hit $10 in deploying of that money, generally from private sources. And you do not get to some of the second and third tranches, which is it's a 3 drawdown kind of program. So the first money that comes in might be $300 million, which is twice what they had last time. And it took them 10 years to deploy that. So it's going to be very challenging to get to the other two $300 million tranches unless everybody's, got a foot in the game and trying to push this money out. And probably have to do something differently than what they've done in the past. And most people are going to stay and say, we didn't know. Nobody said anything.
Yeah.
Donna, how do we get that information dispersed out?
I will put a link. I will put a link in the chat, and so who you could get to. And anybody wants to talk about detail, just give me a buzz.
And keep in mind, thank you, Michael, for putting that in the chat too. The link in the chat. Treasury actually has had a number of webinars over the last few months. Now the state, now I'm in Virginia, so our state government officials had actually done a great job of reaching out to CDFIs and saying, what would you use it for? How could it benefit you and the communities that you serve? They've been having webinars as well. But the key is getting that link and making sure that you're reaching out and saying, I want to know more information. I want to be a participant. Tell me how to do that. What steps I need to take to do that.
Fantastic. Robin has a question. What are the buckets for the funding for the CDFIs?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Robin, can you?
Well, I'm just asking, I know we get money from the federal dollars. You mentioned Amazon, and I'm thinking that a lot of these corporations are starting to, when you're talking to them, the first thing that they think you're talking about is a grant or some kind of philanthropic. No, we'd like to borrow some money at a rate that's reasonable and be able to pay it back, that type of thing. So I'm just what are you seeing, Donna, as far as, who's out there?
Yeah, that's a great question, Robin. So in terms of buckets, it really just doesn't depend. There are some CDFIs that have been fortunate enough to have established relationships with some of these corporations, and they are getting millions of dollars. I can tell you that I'm again on the board of the Opportunity Finance Network, which is a national trade association for CDFIs. And Google has committed, and I don't have the numbers right in front of me. I should, because I'm a board member, but Google, Twitter, PayPal, and other corporations have provided significant amounts of money to the OFIN network so that they can actually lend that money at a more affordable rate to their members. Other corporations have worked independently and like on Amazon and have gone directly to CDFIs as well. But it can be significant. Again, it's a learning process though, because most of the CDFIs that have worked with corporations have worked directly with their treasurer. And the treasurer doesn't often understand what CDFIs do. And so that's been a learning process in and of itself. And, they're looking for a return on investments that are something that you would see out of a for-profit, large organization. And most of these are nonprofits. So getting them to that point where they're understanding and comfortable. And now that they see, it always takes somebody to take the lead, Robin, as you know. You see a couple of organizations doing it, and now there's a little bit more comfort level with other corporations. But again, there still needs to be a lot more.
Thank you so much, Donna. Colette has a question. First of all, she says, hi, Donna. Is the AAA planning, and you'll have to explain the AAA, planning any marketing to continue the focus on Black-led CDFIs like it did during the PPP?
Yes, so Linwood Long is our CEO. Linwood he retired as the CEO of Carolina Small Business Development Fund, and we dragged him back into the workforce to have us to be our CEO for the AAA group. And we are planning, actually, it's already underway, work that's being done to step up our marketing and our communications. Clearly, we have a website. I can put that in the chat as well. We have publications and articles that we've written together or separately, or other AAA members have written as well. We will continue to advocate for this, and for a couple of reasons, Crystal. You know, there is still the infrastructure bill that needs to be signed. There is still issues related to environmental justice that impact low-income and minority communities. We have been meeting with different leaders and influencers, signing different letters to advocate our position. Hilda Kennedy, I noticed, was on the line, and Hilda is the CEO of AMPAC in California, and she is part of our advocacy committee, has been a strong leader and just totally eloquent and really helping others understand what those needs are going forward for AAA as well.
That's fantastic. And I see Tina Phillips has put a lot of information in. Alicia has put a lot of, so you guys want to make sure that you copy the chat. I will also make sure the links and information, you can save the chat by clicking those three little buttons to the side of the smiley face and utilize that. And I believe Robin indicated, look at the links, check the links, sign up for the newsletters so that we can support the organizations. And there was one other question, and we're going to have Dr. Mays give us an update on the Omicron virus and the Deltas and the flu, all that stuff that's happening out there in the world. So in a few minutes, Joe, are you guys a CDFI now? You gotta find his mute.
Yes, we got our CDFI 3 years ago, and obviously we were building it out, and then COVID hit, and we kind of shifted into a grants mode. So we didn't do a lot of lending in 2020, and part of 2021, we were really focused on identifying grants, which I think a lot of you know. We got the Netflix grant for $500,000, Southern California Gas, Sempra, and others. But we really are moving fast now. We've already done, since October, 15 microloans. So we're really gearing up. This is something that I know Donna knows, Marva Smith Battle Bay, my predecessor, something she wanted to do. We are there. And I'm proud to say we're one of those few African-American CDFIs across the country. And we need many more.
I'm your AAA member, Joe, and it's good to see you because I've only seen you on email. So it's good to see you in person.
Nice.
So how can we as a community, I believe this was a part 2 of a question that Robin had, as a community, get this information out to support the coalition? And that's for the ones in our states, the ones in other states with friends and family. And, you know, right now we need some game-changing strategies because there's so many issues in our community. And this pandemic has created some major financial issues for us, especially if anybody's being hospitalized. So how do we get that support out there to make sure that we're growing and thriving and not just surviving? Because right now we're hanging on by a string.
Yeah, thank you for that question. You know, I think it's important, if you have CDFIs that are in your community, to be able to sit down and talk with the teams there to better understand what their strategic priorities are. Clearly, our AAA website has information on what our priorities are to help we need ambassadors. We need people to help us communicate far and wide, because this is the first time that a group like this has been assembled. It's hard to believe, but there was not an organization of Black-led CDFIs until Linwood Long, Inez Long, and I came together in 2018 and said, wouldn't this be a great idea? Because we need to be able to communicate with each other and also support one another. So I think just getting that word out, understanding what the need is for AAA. Crystal, we also serve as, we have our 501c3 designation now, but we are also getting investments from philanthropic organizations, banks and foundations, and passing along those grants to AAA members, particularly the smaller asset size members that really need that capital. The grants in this case to help build their operations. And so we want to continue to have that happen. We want to continue to get that kind of support. But as Robin said, a lot of times people say, well, hey, we're ready to make loans. We want to make us loans in our community as well. And so at some point, AAA wants to be an organization that's also providing lending, loan capital, and other types of technical assistance to the people that we serve. That's already being done with the individual CDFIs that are members. But as an organization, as one organization, we see that there's an opportunity for us to do even more and to grow as well. And so to the extent that people can be our ambassadors beyond the 57 CEOs that manage the CDFIs, we would be most grateful.
If you get us some information, I'll make sure that I include it in my outreach. And I'm sure those are those that are here as well. And I see a number of people, I assume they signed on for you, that are here in the CDFI. So yeah, we want to be here to help. It's so important right now. Everything that we do should be very directed and very strategic, and to make sure that there is some action on the other side of it that can create change. We are not in a place where we can just play at this anymore and talk about it. We actually have to be about it. So I want to thank you so much, Donna. You have been a wealth of information. I've connected with you on LinkedIn. I hope everybody else here does. And follow all these other amazing people here as well, guys, because this is how we expand. This is how we grow. This is how we create a thriving society, by connecting together and working together as a Black community that care about our young people and our future. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Dr. Mays, because right now, everybody, I'm afraid to leave my house.
I have to tell you, you should be, because I'm going to do an update today. Good morning, family. Let me always start there.
Good morning.
Because I believe in saying that, because we are all interconnected.
Yeah. Hey, Dr. Mays, before I know you're going to be talking about Omicron. So speaking of Greek letters, and I will take this advantage before the banging stops to give a shout out to the today's Founders Day for Delta Sigma Theta. And in 2 days, it will be the Founders Day for the Sisters of Alpha Kappa Alpha. So since you're going to be talking about Greek letters, I figured I'd give both the sisters a shout out.
Shout out to them, because they're in the community all the time trying to help in terms of service. So thank you very much. So what I want to accomplish today is to, kind of be the Scared Straight movie, where they try and get the kids to realize, oh, this is what can happen when you go to jail. I'm trying to tell you, this is how you can get COVID. So I'm just going to provide you with a few statistics. And see, Crystal got it, where she said she's scared to go out of her house. I want you to understand what it is we're facing right now. And we haven't hit the peak quite yet. So you need to do timing. So you all are in business. So understand, kind of try and watch for when the peaks are going to happen. And it's going to come down, because then I think you're going to have more people out and about. But for right now, in LA County on Tuesday, we hit 2 million confirmed cases of COVID infection. I want you to hear 2 million. On Monday, we had 43,582 confirmed cases of COVID infection. And the reason I say confirmed cases of COVID infection is because all of those at-home test kits that got rushed out for everybody to use, nobody knows where to report that they were infected if they were. So the numbers I'm giving you are from test sites and clinical testing that goes on. So I want you to know there's more. And so people have asked me, well, how do I make sure my number counts? And it's very important as Black people that our numbers are known, because that's how the resources come in. So if you have a source of care, you call your primary care doctor and say, I did a home test and this is what happened. You should be calling them anyway. But so don't just go crawl in the bed. Oh, I feel so bad. And it's like, tell somebody, you know, make sure somebody is looking out for you also in family and what have you. Because again, mild means not in a hospital. Not in a hospital usually means ventilators. Doesn't mean when you're at home, you can actually feel very sick. So do report and share. In terms of our kids, LAUSD, you know, they just came back. They had more than 62,000 cases of COVID infections as of Tuesday. So I'm just wanting to spread a little bit of reality here of, if you haven't been doing your masks and all these other kinds of things, COVID is here and it is around you. One of the things I'm going to share with you, and it was really why I wanted to come on today, is there's a lot of fake either N95 or KN95 masks that are getting out. So what I want you to do is that if you have been resourceful enough to get yourself some of those masks, is to do what we call the mask test. Take one of the masks, go into the kitchen, the bathroom, or wherever, fill it up with water. If the water starts running through, you got a fake mask or a mask that's not good enough. If it holds the water, then understand it will not let that virus in. Those drops won't get in. But if the water can come through the mask, you didn't get a good mask. So I'm suggesting that, you know, I know they're expensive, but just take one of them and try it and make sure you have a protective mask, because everyone is being it's recommended that you not deal with just the surgical mask or that you deal with a cloth mask, but that you upgrade your mask during this COVID time. The other thing I will do is to extend something. You know, Monday is Martin Luther King Day, and I'm a big believer in a day of service. So we've started a tradition among some of us at UCLA where we give back things that we have. And one of the things I know that UCLA has very strongly is all this medical information and knowledge. So I have organized with some extraordinary colleagues that tonight from 5:30 to 7 p.m., we are, you know, we did this for our students, but we're extending it, is we have said to our Black and Latino students, please come to our webinar to learn about COVID, but bring your family. So we said as their day of service, you pick 3 people in your family and have them come on the webinar, let them listen, ask questions. We are going to be open to all kinds of questions. I will extend that to you. I think I sent Crystal the address. You just have to register in order to be able to get the Zoom link. I will be there. A really great brother, Dr. Omar Gardner, who is a Black male who oversees our testing labs. He is a microbiologist by training, and that brother can answer every question so plainly for you about testing and how the virus works. Dr. Madel Briggs-Malison, who is an emergency room physician, and so you know she has some experience, is going to be there with us. And then we're going to have Dr. Cheryl Brown, who is with Ultimate, to be there. So we will talk but we're going to answer questions. And we say, bring other people with you. This is my belief about Hello Family. So I'm going to stop there. I saw things moving. So I wasn't sure if there were questions.
There actually are a couple of questions. Thank you for that. I just got mine in from my KN, whichever, N95, whatever it was. I got it from Bianca Vickie, much reasonable than ordering it from Amazon. So she's usually, she was on the call earlier, but you guys can go over to her website, Vickie.com, I believe it's called, and pick it up over there. I got it in 2 days, so let's be safe. Let's see, there was a question. Stephen asked a question. So he has heard that everyone at some point is going to be exposed and have COVID. Is this true? This is what we're hearing on the news and other information highways and byways.
I think that is coming from something that Fauci said. And Dr. Fauci thinks that, where we are in this epidemic is such that many people are going to get COVID. Many people are going to be exposed to COVID. So there's a difference between getting exposed and getting infected. So there are going to be a lot of people who are going to get infected, and partially it's because of the transmissibility and the fact that they aren't protecting themselves well enough in terms of their mask. I am typically double masked. I have a surgical mask, and then I have my KN95 or N95 over that, because what we're beginning to see is this, you can see the surgical mask, you can kind of see parts of, where there's pockets. I tell people, make sure you pinch, your mask up at top so that it's more air clogged. But I don't think that every human being is going to get infected. It's like the flu in the sense that there is a great opportunity for exposure. And what you hope is that with either protection or a strong immunity system, that you don't get infected. But there are going to be a lot of people that are going to get infected because, remember, all our younger kids are not being vaccinated yet. We also know that in our over 65 population, only a small percentage of them have gotten their boosters. We don't know why they're not going out getting their boosters. And we also know that in the 5 to 11-year-old, that we still have a lot of people who need to get vaccinated. So there's a lot of missing vaccination, which then mean that you don't have the level of immunity protection. And then indeed, you may get infected. Maybe milder, but still you may get infected. But it's going to be a lot of people. When I just told you 2 million, there's a lot of people that are getting this.
That's fantastic. Here's another deterrent for those of you who have anti-vaxxers in your family that don't have health insurance. My co-host Gilbert Buchanan had COVID. He was in the hospital for 10 days. He recovered, but he almost relapsed because he's got a hospital bill, and it was $150,000. That right there should deter everyone to put your mask on and stay the heck away. And don't try to assume because everybody's supposed to get it, because you don't know what kind of underlying health issues you may have. And he had one, and he almost lost his life. That's one thing. That's the first thing. But the second thing is, who the heck can afford a $150,000 hospital bill? Let's just be real. So share that. Please feel free to share that, because sometimes reality is about the dollars. And for me, that's about the dollars. And for me, if I can't work, That's a major issue. So we want to thank everyone. Barbara has one question before we leave. Guys, please save the chat. I'm going to put a lot of the chat information on Facebook under Recycling Black Dollars, and also on the Community Briefings Facebook group page, so that you guys can follow up. Sign up for the newsletter, subscribe to get more information about CDFIs. Follow Donna Gambrell. She's amazing. Tina was on here. She was here earlier dispersing a lot of information. This was a very powerful meeting, and I want to thank everyone for coming. This the community briefing is powered by Recycling Black Dollars and the BBA, Black Business Association. Also, I don't know if for those of you that don't know, Skip Cooper is retiring. He has formally retired from the BBA. The new interim president is Sarah Harris from she is with Sweet Events. So just to give you that, pass that on information on to you. And you can reach out to Emma for more details, because she has lots of details. And Brenda, we're gonna close out. We're gonna let you ask your question, and then we're gonna let Stephen close out.
Thank you so much. Yes, it was a powerful meeting. I provide health coverage enrollment services, and in California, it's called PE eligibility for anyone who's been hospitalized with COVID. Medi-Cal, no matter what your income, is paying the medical bill. So your associate, I can put my contact information.
Please do.
Okay, thank you.
And that was the PE, what was that? You'll put all that details there, right?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you so much, so appreciative. Stephen, who's here next? And you can wrap us up.
First of all, I'd like to thank Michael Banner for making the reintroduction to Donna Gambrell. When I was on the East Coast, Donna was so gracious to give me some of her time. So you got to realize, for those in California, Donna is 3-hour difference. Thank you, Donna, again. Also, we lost a legend, Sidney Poitier. After this call is over, think about the 2 or 3 favorite Sidney Poitier movies. And, because he did kind of resonate with me, his life and story. With that being the case, next week, our guest is Mr. Melvin Lindsay, Managing Director of Now Capital, one of the nation's largest Black-owned equity lending entities. We'll talk about deal making, private equity, and capital markets. So join us next week on the community briefing, January 20th. And once again, thank you, Ms. Gambrell.
Thank you all. Robin, excellent. Good to see you. We love you.
Yeah, good
and
to see you.
Keep getting better. So we have you back full time. Emma, thank you. Colette, thank you. Thank everyone that is here. Michelle, please come back. Tell a friend. This is awesome, guys. Donna, you were awesome today. That's absolutely awesome. So thank you. I'm going to go back and listen. The archive of this video will be up on the community briefing later this week or the early part of next week. It will also be on YouTube. So please share it. This was very valuable information, guys, especially Dr. May's information. Do the water test for your mask. Double up, triple up. I don't know what you need to do. Stay in the house. Stay in the house right now so that we can keep seeing you. Robin?
I just wanted to, again, you guys, this warms my heart, especially to see our regulars. And again, the information that keeps coming from this organization is amazing. As I said in the chat box, sign up for these newsletters, get on the mailing list of these organizations in order to benefit from this information. And then on a personal note, my daughter-in-law is announced in the Sentinel today. She's the new Equity Performance Management and Innovation Division of the City Administrative Offices of the City of Los Angeles. She's going to be the Associate Director of that program. And again, we have somebody who has our voice in mind. And I'm just so proud of her. She's done a fantastic job. So take a look at that when you get a minute.
All righty. Thank you, guys. See you guys next Thursday. Have a blessed week. Be safe and stay out of the way of the Omicron virus.
Omicron.
Take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Donna.